All right, we've got this old Epson 3170 flatbed scanner, and it started making a grinding noise and beeping, and it quit working. And I have figured out what has broken. And so this is going to be a quick video on how to fix it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the top cover, and to get started, you'll just unplug it from the rear, and then it lifts right off. Next, there's two Phillips head screws that you need to remove. I've already loosened them. So there's one down in this hole. And then there's another one down in that hole. Once you've done that, lift the back of the case and push it forward, and it'll lift right off. So this is the problem. This little pulley is mounted on a bracket, and it's under a spring tensioner to keep the belt tight, so it'll move back and forth a little bit. But it is held in place with two plastic tabs, and you can see one of them here has broken off. And so that's the weak spot here with these with this scanner. These things will break off, and then this thing is free to flop around and the pulley comes loose. So we're going to drill a couple holes and go through the bracket, through the belly of the scanner, and put a couple screws in place, and that will keep it secured. So I've removed the pulley bracket and drilled a couple holes big enough for some screws to fit into. So next we have to reinsert the bracket, and to do that you get the tail, sheet metal tail, back inside the spring. And jiggle it around a little bit here until you compress the spring. You can see there's a little tab that has to fit down into the slot. There we go. And that's what you want. So I'm still under the remaining existing tab, and I've got this plastic tab inside the slot, and then you need to push this forwards or back towards the scanner unit so that you can slip the belt back over it. So the spring keeps it pushed this way, and so we're going to compress that spring so that we can put the belt back on, and I'll have to do that when I put the phone down here. Okay, so you can see here that I have put the belt back on by compressing the spring and then allowing it to go forward. And we're going to want to drill our holes with this in the forward position. So we want the belt to be tight from that spring. And so this is where we want to drill our holes. So I'll use a hand drill with the same size drill bit, and just use the holes in the bracket as a guide and drill right through the belly of the scanner. So I've drilled right through the bracket, through the holes that I had already drilled in the bracket, right through the belly of the scanner. So now you're going to want to get some compressed air or a shop vac or something and suck all these chips out. You don't want any chips floating around inside your scanner that might get on the inside of the view screen and screw up future scanning. So here's what it looks like from the top side with the repair complete. So we now have a couple of screws that are placed through those holes. You want to make sure that they don't rub the belt, so you want to make sure that you use a screw head that's low enough that it's not going to hurt the belt when the belt's in its normal operation. And we look like we're okay there. So now we'll take a look at the belly. Here you can see the bottom of the scanner, and here's the screws that are protruding through the belly of the scanner. They're still short enough that they don't hit, the table based on these feet that the scanner has. They could be a little shorter. If they're too long, you can trim them off if you need to, or just find some shorter screws. These are just some that I happen to have in my bin. While I was working on the scanner, I noticed that this piece of plastic was down on top of this post, and that is coming from the top cover. So my covers is broken, so only one of the screws would actually retain anything anymore. So I'm going to fix that. It's probably okay with just one screw. I mean, you're not fooling around with this cover a whole lot, but I'm just going to use some super glue and super glue that back in place like that. Okay, so instead of super glue, I was digging around in my drawer and I found some 5-minute epoxy. I tend to like epoxy better than super glue because it's not as rigid. It's not as prone to fracturing. The epoxy is going to have a little bit of give to it once it sets up. And it also sets up in 5 minutes, and so we'll be good to go in 10 minutes. So I just slathered it all around the pedestal and over the top of the broken part to kind of form a epoxy cap, so to speak, to keep it bound onto that pedestal. So we'll wait 10 minutes or so for that epoxy to harden up, and then we'll put it back together. All right, to reassemble, you just set it back in place with the lip a little bit forwards. Just like we took it off, we had to push it forwards. We got to start it off forwards. And then you're going to make sure this lock piece here is set down in position. This thing slides back and forth so you can stop people from plugging in. I don't know why it's there, but anyhow. So now you just lift up and slide it towards the rear. And I may need to put the camera down and have to, oh, there we go. So now we're flush up front and flush in the back, or just about. I'll have to put the camera down and give it just a little bit of a shove, but anyway, that's it. You just get the front lip locked and then shove it that way and make sure it sits down into this lock plate groove. And then we'll put the screws in. All right, so finally we're going to put the screws back down in their holes. A magnetic tip screwdriver is helpful here. And that's one. And then we'll do the same thing over here with the next screw, which I'm going to have my other hand to do it. All right, so that screw is back in place. And I don't know if we can see down in that dark hole, but that screw's also back in place. So that's it for buttoning up the scanner. Now we'll just put the lid back on and plug it back in just like we took it off. So just like we took the lid off, and it's supposed to come off so you can do flatbed scanning without it. You just put these tabs down in those slots, and then the cable plugs back in just like it came out to start with. And that's it. So now our scanner should be back in action, and we'll plug it in and give it a go.